He was a man who couldn't find an English woman who caught up with his depressions, his paranoia, his lack of intellect, to be very crude about it. And Meghan gave him a safety net.
Prince Harry expected a cold reception when his car crossed the final stretch toward Balmoral. He did not expect to discover that the palace had erased the identity he had carried since birth. Before he reached the main staircase, a senior equerry placed a cream folder into his hands. Inside, every current royal record had been amended. His name remained. His family connection remained. But the word prince had disappeared from every official line. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Harry tightened his grip on the folder. King Charles had summoned him with a message requesting a family meeting, and the silence around that invitation had allowed hope to grow. Perhaps the king wanted reconciliation. Perhaps he wanted to discuss security, or the future place of Archie and Lilibet. Yet no aide had explained why the meeting had been arranged so suddenly. Now the answer rested in Harry's hands. The equerry spoke carefully. A royal administrative decree, an official order changing palace record-keeping, had removed the style prince from every active document connected to Harry. Household directories had been revised, ceremonial lists had been rewritten, seating plans, briefing papers, and state event protocols now identified him only as Harry, Duke of Sussex. The title granted at birth had not vanished from history. It had vanished from the monarchy's present. Harry opened the folder again. His eyes moved across one page, then another, until they stopped on a family register. William remained listed as Prince of Wales, the title carried by the direct heir to the throne. Beside Harry's name, the old designation had been crossed out and replaced. He pressed one finger against the altered line, as though touching it might force the missing word to return. The wound went deeper than rank. Prince had connected the man standing at Balmoral to the child who had walked behind Diana's coffin, surrounded by cameras and duty before he understood either. Now people who still called him son, brother, and family had edited that connection from their working records. Harry felt as though the palace had not reduced his status. It had rewritten his childhood. Then the equerry revealed the final blow. The records had been changed 3 days earlier. Harry had been invited only after the decision was complete. On the last page stood Charles's authorization and William's countersignature, confirming the future king's support. Harry closed the folder. Charles and William were waiting upstairs. As he climbed toward them, he understood this was not a meeting about his identity. It was a meeting about why they had already taken it away. The decree appeared administrative, but nothing about it was merely administrative. For Charles, it was a test of whether a king could separate duty from fatherhood. For William, it was an act of protection carried out at enormous personal cost. For Harry, it was proof that the institution had finally placed a line through his place within the family. 3 men were now trapped inside the meaning of one missing word, and none of them could escape what it revealed. Charles had spent months fighting himself. As sovereign, the monarch carried responsibility for keeping royal roles clear, especially when public status could be mistaken for official power. As a father, he saw the son who once reached for his hand after Diana's death. Every concession to Harry looked like weakness to the institution. Every refusal felt like betrayal inside the family. Hours before the arrival, King Charles sat alone in Balmoral's private library with the signed decree beside untouched tea. The document was an official order changing how the active royal household recorded Harry's status. He read the first paragraph again, removed his glasses, and set them down slowly. Camilla entered without ceremony and asked whether he regretted signing it. He looked at the page, then at her, but gave no answer. She understood that silence was the answer. William carried a different burden. The Prince of Wales, the title held by the direct heir to the throne, believed royal rank could not remain separate from royal duty forever. He thought of George, Charlotte, and Louis, and of the system they would inherit. Yet he also remembered closed nursery doors, whispered promises, and 2 frightened brothers swearing they would face the monarchy together. By countersigning the order, he protected the crown while breaking something deeply personal. Harry discovered another detail as he climbed the corridor. Archie and Lilibet had not been altered in the records. Their styles remained untouched. That single fact destroyed any claim that the decree was routine cleanup. The action had been aimed at him alone, at his choices, and at the broken relationship between his life abroad and the institution he had left behind. Anne had pushed Charles to act before Harry arrived. In a documented palace memorandum, Princess Anne warned that another delay would feed false hope on both sides. Ambiguity, she wrote, was no longer kindness. It was prolonging the wound. Harry reached the final door and heard William's voice stop. An aide opened it, then stepped away. Charles remained seated. William stood near the window. Neither man called him prince. The missing greeting struck harder than the decree, and the silence became the first blow of the confrontation waiting to erupt. The removal did not begin at Balmoral. It began 6 weeks earlier inside St. George's Hall, during a ceremony Harry had never been expected to attend. One unscheduled arrival, one demand made in front of stunned palace officials, and one sentence spoken directly to William changed everything. From that moment, the future king no longer viewed the dispute as a family misunderstanding. He saw it as a direct challenge to the crown, and Charles was forced to choose a side. William had been leading preparations for a private investiture rehearsal at Windsor. An investiture is a formal ceremony in which the monarch or a senior royal presents honors to people recognized for service. This rehearsal focused on young recipients of national awards, and the prince wanted it to reflect a quieter monarchy built around work rather than status. Charles had trusted him to oversee every detail, making the event a test of future leadership. Harry arrived without warning. His name appeared on no schedule, and no chair had been prepared for him. He told officials he needed to speak with Charles about security, access to royal residences, and the future place of Archie and Lilibet at family ceremonies. Yet the king was not present. William was. The brothers entered a side chamber beside the hall. Harry placed the approved ceremonial list on the table and demanded that his name be restored under the full designation Prince Harry. William refused. The Duke pressed both hands against the document and said, "You cannot remove what I was born with simply because you control the room." William closed the folder. He answered that birth had created Harry's bond with the family, but service had once given the title its living meaning. The future king said royal status could not be used as authority without royal accountability. Harry stepped closer. The prince did not move. In that moment, the old understanding between them broke. Anne heard every word from beyond a partly open door. The Princess Royal, the monarch's sister and one of the hardest-working senior royals, had been waiting with the Lord Chamberlain, the official who manages major ceremonial business. Harry did not know they were there. She heard him threaten to challenge any record that reduced his birthright, and she watched William leave the chamber without looking back. Charles received the documented account that evening. The Lord Chamberlain sent a formal memorandum describing a collapse of ceremonial authority, while Anne added a handwritten warning: the monarchy could survive estrangement, but not two competing definitions of royal power. William met the king alone the next morning. He placed the memorandum on his father's desk and asked for permanent clarity. Charles said nothing. He simply kept the file. That silent choice began the process Harry was now confronting at Balmoral. Harry does not sit when Charles gestures toward the empty chair. Instead, he places the altered records on the table between his father and brother. The folder lands with a controlled sound, but the emotion behind it shakes the room. He demands to know why he was brought to Balmoral after the decision had already been made. Charles begins with duty. William begins with silence. Harry rejects both and forces the confrontation into the territory they fear most: family. Charles steadies his voice. The king explains that the decree does not remove Harry from the line of succession, the official order determining who may inherit the throne. It does not cancel the dukedom, the noble title granted to him at marriage, or deny his blood connection to the House of Windsor. It changes how the active royal household records someone who no longer represents the sovereign. Harry refuses the distinction. He says official language becomes public truth, and public truth becomes memory. By removing Prince from current palace records, the crown has not revised protocol. It has announced that the monarch's younger son no longer belongs inside the living structure of the institution. Harry turns toward William. "Look at me and say I am no longer your brother." William leaves the window and meets his gaze. "You are my brother, but you cannot demand that the crown pretend nothing has changed." The prince says the title carried duty as well as birth. Harry answers that William has confused obedience with loyalty. Charles strikes his palm against the chair. The sound cuts through them. He orders both sons to stop, then admits in a weaker voice that he delayed the decision because every version felt like losing Harry again. The monarch looks at his younger son, but the son does not soften. William reveals the private proposal prepared months earlier. Harry could have retained the princely style within family settings if he agreed never to invoke it commercially, politically, or during disputes with the palace. Officials withheld the offer because they believed he would reject its limits. Harry's anger sharpens when Charles reveals more. The original draft would have removed the style from active and historical household indexes. The king personally protected birth records, childhood files, and documents created during Queen Elizabeth's reign. He changed the present, but refused to erase the past. Harry demands every draft. William refuses. The accusation comes instantly. Harry says his brother has hidden a campaign against him from the beginning. Charles closes his eyes, then names the person who designed the order. The conflict is no longer brother against brother. Someone with deeper authority built the architecture of Harry's erasure, and she is about to enter the room. Harry believes William engineered the removal. He is wrong. The first complete proposal was drafted under the supervision of Princess Anne, the royal figure least interested in popularity and least afraid of personal blame. When she enters the sitting room carrying a narrow red file, no one asks why she is there. Charles lowers his eyes. William moves aside. Harry remains standing. Anne places the file beside the altered records and prepares to explain what neither brother wants to hear. Anne speaks before anyone can challenge her. After the Windsor confrontation, Charles asked her to examine what would happen if Harry continued using the princely style while living outside the working royal household. That household is the group of family members and officials who perform duties for the monarch. She consulted the Lord Chamberlain, constitutional advisors, and archivists responsible for preserving royal records. Charles carries the final burden. Anne explains that only the sovereign could approve a complete change to current palace records. William's countersignature showed that the next reign would continue the policy, but it did not transfer responsibility. The king signed the order. The decision was his. Anne turns directly toward Harry. She says punishment was never her goal. The problem had become practical and relentless. Every invitation, seating plan, security request, charity appearance, and public statement created a new fight over what the title allowed him to demand. Harry hears the accusation beneath her calm words, yet she refuses to soften them. Charles twists the royal signet ring around his finger. The ring carries the monarch's personal emblem and is traditionally linked to official authority. Anne reminds him that delay had created private confrontations and public confusion. The king looks toward his son, then lowers his gaze again. Harry notices. So does William. The red file opens. Anne lists 12 documented disputes involving estate access, ceremonial position, security classification, and official correspondence. Each entry includes dates, written requests, and palace responses. Harry challenges several examples, but the princess answers from the record, not memory. Anne then reveals the decision she stopped. Advisors had proposed a formal legal process to remove the princely status completely. She rejected it as public vengeance. Instead, she recommended administrative non-use, preserving Harry's birth history while ending active palace recognition. Harry sees a sealed envelope clipped inside the file. Across it, Anne has written, "Regarding Diana's expressed wishes for both sons." He reaches forward, but Charles covers it with his hand. The king says Harry cannot open it yet. First, he must understand what Diana asked Anne to protect, and why that promise now stands between both brothers and the crown, before the family destroys what little love remains. By nightfall, the decree begins changing Harry's world in small, merciless ways. His room card no longer carries the princely style. A place setting prepared for dinner identifies him only by his dukedom. Even the security briefing beside his bed uses the amended form. None of these details has practical power alone. Together, they create something devastating. A palace in which every object knows Harry's official identity has changed before his heart accepts it. Balmoral staff receive instructions before dinner. Formal documents must use Duke of Sussex, the noble rank granted to Harry at marriage, while family conversation may use his first name. The change is not public, yet it already governs the household. Palace language does more than label people. It decides who represents the sovereign and who merely belongs by blood. Harry discovers the first ceremonial consequence inside a briefing folder. His name has vanished from a draft procession list for an upcoming family commemoration. A procession is the ordered public entrance of royals according to rank and duty. He may attend beside Charles as a relative, but he will not stand among active princes representing the crown. Harry enters his bedroom alone and lifts the printed room card. His thumb passes over the empty space where Prince once appeared. He folds the card in half, almost tears it, then stops. Instead, he places it inside his travel case, preserving evidence of the moment that reduced him. Charles takes his place downstairs and notices Harry's empty chair before the first course. The king rises without explanation and leaves. Camilla follows him into the corridor, where he admits that he prepared for his son's anger, not his absence. The queen consort tells him silence can wound more deeply than shouting. He does not disagree. Harry calls Meghan from an alcove. He tells her the change is complete, and William supported it. After a long pause, she asks whether he is leaving. Harry says no. He will not depart until he reads Diana's envelope and understands why Anne guarded it. William reaches Harry's corridor later that night. The prince raises his hand toward the closed door, hesitates, then lowers it. Inside, Harry hears the familiar footsteps stop and move away. He knows who came. Neither brother speaks. A handwritten note slides beneath the door minutes later. Anne asks Harry to meet her beside the stone boathouse at sunrise. She promises to bring Diana's envelope, but warns that it will restore nothing and excuse no one. Harry lies awake, believing his mother may finally defend him. Dawn will reveal that Diana feared something greater than a lost title, the anger that could destroy both her sons. At sunrise, Harry finds Princess Anne waiting beside the Balmoral boathouse with no aides, no officials, and no royal file except the sealed envelope. The lock is still. Anne does not offer comfort before handing it over. She tells him the words inside were recorded after a private conversation with Diana during one of the hardest periods of her separation from Charles. They were not instructions about rank. They were a warning about what the monarchy could turn two wounded brothers into. Anne explains that Diana spoke to her after a tense family gathering, when William and Harry were still boys surrounded by expectations they could not understand. The Princess Royal, the monarch's sister who often carries difficult family duties, later wrote down the substance of that private conversation. Diana asked her to seal the account because she feared her sons would one day be forced into rival roles. Charles kept the envelope hidden for years. The king believed revealing it during earlier disputes would look like emotional manipulation, as though he were using Diana's memory to control Harry. Now he had authorized Anne to share it, because the title decision had brought her deepest warning to life. Harry opens the note. Diana had pleaded that neither son should ever use royal position as proof of who was more loved. She feared William would become trapped by responsibility, carrying the crown until duty consumed the brother beneath it. She feared Harry would become trapped by rejection, treating every closed door as evidence that his family had abandoned him. Anne removes the last shield between them. She tells Harry that Charles still loves him, William still resents how deeply he needs him, and Harry still measures every royal decision against the pain of losing his mother. The princess says all three truths can exist, without making the decree wrong or making his suffering unreal. Harry asks the question he already fears. Anne answers plainly. The administrative removal is final. That means the palace will no longer use the princely style in active records, even though his birth history remains untouched. Charles believes restoring it would restart endless negotiation, while William has promised to apply the same rule to every future non-working royal. Anne gives him one choice. Harry can leave immediately and turn the decision into another public war, or return to Balmoral and speak to William without advisors, documents, or the crown standing between them. Harry reads Diana's words twice, seals the envelope, and gives it back. Take me to him. Anne does not ask which man he means. She already knows. For the first time since arriving, Harry walks toward Balmoral without carrying the decree, because the next decision belongs not to the palace, but to two brothers alone. The palace intends to keep the change private until Harry leaves Balmoral. That plan collapses before midday. A revised ceremonial directory reaches a national newspaper, and within hours the missing title becomes the only story Britain is discussing. Television studios fill with constitutional experts. Crowds gather outside royal gates. Yet one image captures the public mood more powerfully than any debate. An enlarged photograph of the two young princes walking behind Diana, displayed beneath a headline declaring that only one remains officially recognized. Buckingham Palace confirms the leak before speculation can outrun control. The revised household directory identifies Harry, Duke of Sussex, without the princely designation used in earlier editions. A household directory is the palace's formal record of royal names, roles, and current ceremonial status. Its wording matters because broadcasters, officials, charities, and foreign courts often follow that language closely. The palace issues a carefully framed statement. It says the amendment affects active records and ceremonial use only. Harry remains Charles's son, keeps his dukedom, stays in the line of succession, and remains unchanged in historical documents from earlier reigns. The distinction sounds precise. Public reaction is not. Charles watches the broadcast at Balmoral without speaking. A presenter calls the move the clearest institutional separation between father and son in the modern monarchy. The king switches off the television before the sentence ends. Anne studies his face, but the monarch gives her nothing except silence. Harry sees the newspaper's black front page on his phone. A childhood photograph shows him and William walking behind Diana's coffin. Beneath it, the headline reads, "The Prince Who Disappeared." His expression hardens, then shifts when he notices William reading the same image across the room. Neither brother looks away quickly enough. Britain divides at once. Some call the decision accountability, arguing that royal status should follow royal service. Others call it humiliation, warning that removing active recognition from the king's son turns family pain into public punishment. The debate grows louder because the title represents more than rank. It represents belonging. Outside Buckingham Palace, a woman places 2 white roses beneath a photograph of Diana and her sons. Her handwritten card reads, "She wanted brothers, not rivals." Cameras carry the moment across the country, and the message reaches Balmoral before the flowers begin to bend. Harry lowers his phone and asks William for 10 minutes alone. The prince quietly agrees. They enter the small library where they once played during childhood visits, and William closes the door behind them. While the world argues over power, punishment, and rank, the final meaning of the decree now rests with the only 2 men who truly understand what has been lost. There is no dramatic reversal inside the library. William does not tear up the decree. Harry does not demand another public battle. Instead, the brothers sit across from one another with Diana's childhood photograph resting between them. The title has already been removed, the palace has already confirmed it, and the world has already chosen sides. What remains is more difficult than victory, deciding whether they will allow the crown's decision to erase the last private bond their mother spent her life trying to protect. William speaks first. The prince tells Harry the decision will stand because the monarchy cannot keep official styles that suggest active authority when no active duty exists. An official style is the formal name and rank used by the royal household in records and ceremonies. He accepts responsibility for countersigning the decree and refuses to hide behind Charles, Anne, or palace advisors. Harry does not forgive the action. He calls the removal cruel and says the leak turned an internal decision into public humiliation. Yet he accepts one hard truth. The royal household controls its active records, just as he chose a life beyond its control. Recognition is not agreement, but it ends the argument over reversal. Harry then names the deeper wound. Seeing William's signature hurt more than losing Prince. The future king answers that watching his brother treat every boundary as rejection made peace impossible. Neither man apologizes. Neither escapes into anger. For once, the truth remains between them without becoming another weapon. William slides Diana's childhood photograph toward Harry and says it belongs to both of them. Harry studies it, then places it midway between their chairs. The small gesture becomes their first agreement. Neither brother owns their mother's memory, and neither will use her loss against the other again. The brothers return to Charles together. Harry tells the king he will leave Balmoral as Duke of Sussex and will not challenge the palace records. The dukedom is the noble title granted to him at marriage. William promises there will be no hostile briefing and no extension of the change to Harry's children. Charles embraces his younger son beside the entrance where the folder first appeared. The monarch calls him "my son," avoiding rank without withholding love. Harry answers, "That must be enough for today," His father accepts it. The palace erased Prince from its records, but not Diana's child, Charles's son, or William's brother. Harry leaves with less status, yet clarity. The decree ends his official princely role. The conversation saves his family. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.